After its conquest of Afghanistan, the Taliban is seeking to create a moderate image on the world stage. It struck a conciliatory tone in its first press conference. Addressing the conference, spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid reiterated that there will be no execution, nor will there be retribution against former soldiers and government officials. Importantly, women will be allowed to work and study and will remain active in society within the framework of Islam. The Taliban will also uphold press freedoms, saying that media reporting will be useful to society and will be able to help correct the errors of leaders. That's what the Taliban said. Journalists working for state or privately owned media are not criminals and none of them will be prosecuted. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Council will hold a special session on Tuesday, the 24th of August, to address the serious human rights concerns in Afghanistan. The request for the session has been supported by 89 countries so far, including India. Joining us now to take this discussion forward, Mariam Vardak, founder of Her Afghanistan. We also have with us Hamid Mir, senior Pakistani journalist and a columnist with the Washington Post. We also have Ram Kishan, who is the Deputy Director Asia with the Mercy Corps. They are working very closely with displaced people in Afghanistan, and we will be asking them about the plight of the ordinary Afghani in some time from now. We'll also be joined by human rights lawyer, Afghan human rights lawyer Ferishteh Abbasi. She will be joining us from London on the phone. But Mariam, if I can begin with you, how do you see that press conference by the Taliban? They tried to make all the right noises, but can we really take all of that at face value?
Look, no, nothing could be taken by through face value when it comes to the Taliban and the type of atrocities that they have committed. We have to be extremely cautious in observing and monitoring their actions. They have indirectly pretty much provided their operation framework in their conference yesterday. So based on that, we as within the world community need to keep a close eye on how they're operating. It's wonderful to see that after their press conference, we see protests because of the change of flag all over. So you see it in Jalalabad. I saw images in Khost. There was girls in Kabul yesterday protesting. Now, how they're going to manage that. We also have to be very the Taliban have no experience in running a proper government. Yes, they were shadow government, but when it comes to proper operations, it takes skills, it takes experience, and it takes education.
But Mariam, your foundation, Her Afghanistan, has also said that we cannot not engage with the Taliban. Yes, there have been atrocities committed by them in the past, but if Afghan women don't engage with them, they'll expose themselves to vulnerabilities for the future.
Absolutely. I strongly believe that this generic framework, that the blank canvas that they've provided, that women will be able to operate and have a place, a standing place in society, cannot be left for them to interpret in the Islamic framework. The document that you just read is a press release from my organization calling out all Islamic scholars around the world to support Afghan women in this interpretation. What does this actually mean? How can women actually operate within society under the framework of Islam? One thing that you have to understand is that all Afghan women are Muslim. This term, Sharia law, does not scare any of us. However, how it's interpreted by certain individuals is what could be nerve-wracking, especially by the Afghan Taliban, because we can only judge them based on historical facts. We cannot be naive in giving them any benefit of the doubt for the future.
Right. Mr. Mir, just to get in your view on this, you've been writing extensively in the Washington Post about what the rise of Taliban means, the role of Pakistan in the fall of government in Afghanistan. How do you see these press statements made by Taliban? This was a press conference that shocked everyone. They said there will be amnesty, there will be press freedoms, there will be no retribution.
Yes, you see, we must start from the Doha Agreement. And I think that Doha Agreement was signed last year, and Taliban made a promise to the international community that they will try their level best to resolve this issue through a negotiated settlement. But you see, they entered Kabul with the military might, and I think that that was the violation of the Doha Agreement. Now they have made some excuses that the Kabul was abandoned, Ashraf Ghani escaped, police left the checkposts, so there was chaos and plunder. So that's why we entered the city. But I think that now this is a great challenge for them. Yesterday, they made some big statements. On one side, when they were making statements in Kabul that there is general amnesty, and they were ready to talk to Dr. Abdullah and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. At the same time, in Jalalabad, some Taliban fighters, they attacked the office of the Hizb Islami, which is led by Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. On one side, they said that there is general amnesty, but on the other side, day before yesterday, when the Pul Charkhi jail in Kabul was broken, and some of the people were released from that jail, some of the prisoners were executed there on the spot. They were killed by Taliban because they were their opponents. So there is, you see, whatever they are making, whatever they said in their press conference yesterday, and the statements they were making from Doha. We need some more days to assess whether they are speaking truth or not, because I think that yesterday when they said that women are free to act according to the Sharia law, I received at least 3 telephone calls from Kabul from some of my female colleagues, and they were asking me that please help us because we are facing threats. We are receiving threatening calls. So we were trying our level best to contact our embassy there and ask them to give visas to the Afghan female journalists so that they can come to Pakistan. So you see, the situation is very complicated. We cannot trust whatever they are saying.
Okay, that's an important point that you're making, but I'd also like to ask you about whether Pakistan will grant legitimacy, have conversations on a bilateral basis with the Taliban as well. But Mr. Mir, for the moment, I'd just like to get in Ferishteh Abbasi and Ram Kishan as well. Ferishteh, if I can ask you about what you feel about the situation in Afghanistan right now, the takeover by the Taliban, the fall of the government. As an Afghan woman, what does this really mean to you? Ferishteh. All right, we seem to be losing that link with Ferishteh Abbasi, but Mr. Ramkishan, Mercy Corps has been working in Afghanistan for more than a decade now. In the last couple of months, how has the situation deteriorated for the people of Afghanistan? What is the magnitude of the human crisis that we're looking at in the country?
So Mercy Corps has been in Afghanistan since 1986. And we have worked over the last close to 4 decades in Afghanistan, in all over the place. We have been in 8 provinces currently in Afghanistan. What we have seen over the last 2 months, to be more precise, is intensification of fight, which has led to people moving in from their villages, from their homes into district headquarters or provincial headquarters. We have seen a large number of people moved from north of Afghanistan to Kabul. This has actually added about 390,000 internally displaced people to the existing 3.5 million displaced Afghan in the country. So this actually adds to the existing 18 million people who need humanitarian assistance in Afghanistan. Like Mercy Corps, many other humanitarian organizations have been working, providing much needed life-saving humanitarian support, including food, water and sanitation, shelter, protection support. So what we have seen is a large influx of displaced population in Kabul, in provincial headquarters, and that has added to the number of existing people. We see a huge challenge for many of us to, at the moment, access some areas which we want to make sure that our team members, our staff are safe to go into those areas. And once we have that assessment done and we understand the magnitude of actual need on the ground, we will provide support under the coordination mechanism that has been set up by UN, but all our peer agencies who are working there. So for now, it's very important to also make sure that the protection issues for women and children are paramount. We have seen large number of children and women are under the sky in Kabul. I was in some of those displaced locations, which need something like basic like water, food, and shelter. So it would be important for us to make sure that we stand with those displaced Afghan people and in general with the Afghan population and not abandon them in time of crisis.
Right. So they need global attention, and even WHO has put out a statement supporting the Afghan people right now. And Ferishteh Abbasi, if you can hear me, what does the situation in Afghanistan currently mean to you?
Thank you very much for including me in the panel. Speaking very hard to you at the moment. As an Afghan woman, the basic meaning of Taliban taking over Afghanistan would be more restrictions for women, pushing back into the houses. We have the experience of Taliban government in 1990s. During their government, women had no public presence. They did not have any voice. One of the reasons that you see that these days Kabul looks like a ghost city and you wouldn't see many more women in the streets are because women are scared of them. Women are scared of a terrorist group which have taken over the country. So it's full of disappointment and hopelessness for Afghan women at the moment.
Right, you're saying hopelessness for Afghan women at the moment. We have to take a short break in this discussion, but we request all our guests to stay with us. We will be discussing what the Taliban really means for the global community, what it means for the region as well. Don't go anywhere. This discussion continues on the other side. We are discussing the situation in Afghanistan and the Taliban press conference, the key messages, what they mean for the world, with Maryam Wardak, founder of Her Afghanistan, Hamid Mir, senior Pakistani journalist and columnist with the Washington Post, Ferishteh Abbasi, human rights lawyer, and we're also joined by Ram Kishan, Deputy Regional Director, Asia at the Mercy Corps. But Mr. Hamid Mir, if I could ask you, there has been a lot of criticism of Pakistan for supporting the Taliban with logistics. Ashraf Ghani has said it, US has said it in the past. Imran Khan, and you've quoted him in one of your articles, you've said that Imran Khan said that Afghans had broken the shackles of slavery. What kind of relationship is Pakistan going to have with the Taliban, especially the military, the Pakistan military with the Taliban?
Just a few weeks ago, Imran Khan wrote an article in Washington Post, and in that article, he advised Taliban not to take over Kabul through military power. And he wrote that if Taliban will take over Kabul through military power, Afghanistan may head towards civil war. So that was the position of Imran Khan just a few weeks back. And now he's saying that the Afghans have broken the shackles of slavery. So this is contradiction in his position. I think this is a confused position because I think that in one of the closed door briefings to the parliamentarians, the briefings were arranged by some top security officials of Pakistan. In those briefings, the members of the parliament were told in point and blank that Afghan Taliban are no more friends of Pakistan. And those briefings were given before the fall of Kabul. So on one side, the security establishment is telling the parliamentarians in Pakistan that the Afghan Taliban are no more friends. They don't listen to us. And there is no difference between Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and Afghan Taliban. On the other side, Imran Khan is saying that they have broken the shackles of slavery. So this is a big contradiction. I must say that this new development, it may create problems for the 5 countries in the region and plus United States of America. Because the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, openly they are claiming that we will make an independent state in the Pakistani tribal areas. So they are fighting against the state of Pakistan. Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, they are fighting against the state of Uzbekistan. The Uyghur Muslims from Chinese province of Xinjiang, they are fighting against the state of China. Then there are some people from the Jammu and Kashmir. They are also fighting against the state of India. And then there is Al Qaeda. 2 days ago, Maulvi Fakir Muhammad was released from Pulcharki jail in Kabul. He's a deputy of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and he's an open ally of Al Qaeda. So there are, you see, 5-6 countries in the region, and plus America is also threatened by Al Qaeda. So I think that whatever Zabihullah Mujahid said yesterday, on face value, we cannot accept it. He said that the territory of Afghanistan will not be allowed to use against any other country. But the people who were released by Taliban from Afghan jails in last 2 to 3 days, most of those people are fighting against some neighboring countries of Afghanistan, and they are also fighting against America.
Right. Interesting points there, Mr. Hamid Mir, but if I can get in Mariam as well. Mariam, looking at the way things are unfolding, we are seeing top Taliban leaders return to Afghanistan for talks. We believe there have also been consultations with Hamid Karzai and Abdullah. How are the contours of this government going to unfold, and what role does the international community have to play here? It is easy for Joe Biden to say that we never had a role of nation building in Afghanistan, but at the end of the day, the country is in turmoil. What can the international community do to make sure rights of women and children, minorities, the press are respected, and we have a more representative government? Or do you think that is asking for too much and is unlikely to happen?
I absolutely believe that Joe Biden has slight amnesia, in the sense that he did not reflect on what President Bush said when they first entered Afghanistan. In the Bonn conference, they said that we're going to build the nation. That was the campaign. And they entered building the nation. Of course, the exhaustion is understandable. The American population is exhausted of the never-ending war, and it started to become a policing aspect, which in most cases, Hamid Karzai and President Ghani constantly criticized the United States for meddling in internal affairs, whether that was appointments and any other government recommendation. The international community is a key player right now. Why? Because the Afghan Taliban are looking for legitimacy. The legitimacy should not be provided to them until there is a monitoring mechanism and there is observation and mentoring of how they end violence, they give women a standing place in society. I am a strong advocate of this. We cannot go back to the way things were. Women have endured much more than any other gender in Afghanistan. The past several decades, they have been victims of rape, abuse, internally displaced, snatched away from their families. The kind of atrocities that women constantly face quietly is very disturbing. Another aspect that I really want to hold responsible is the international community. And this is every international diplomatic mission that held representation on the Afghan soil. All of you are responsible for what's happening, because when the Doha Agreement was signed, very rarely did any diplomatic mission speak out. And I would also like to highlight the type of disturbance that many communities are going through and calling out the Afghan Taliban. This was in the making for the past year. This was going to happen. I was constantly speaking out against President Ghani, talking about the kind of bad criteria that he was sending on speaking to Doha. The number of women were only 5. None of them were allowed to speak about based on Sharia law and how they were going to be represented. These are all tactics of a soon-to-fall government, which what happened? I know that the Afghan Taliban did object and come into Taliban, but President Ghani left the country, and there was so many other issues that were falling into place that I can't bear to explain to you that what's happening on the ground. Now, please, as anybody who's watching the show or interested in Afghanistan, you need to constantly monitor, speak out, and most importantly, provide solutions rather than spreading fear. Solutions are very important. If you are against the Taliban,
Right.
I want you to speak out and make sure you hold them accountable for what they say, especially publicly.
Right. Those are very important points there, Mariam. I'll come back to you again. Mr. Mir, implications for India, Kashmir and terrorism in the region. Is the Pakistan military, the ISI, likely to use their links with Taliban? Are we going to see more Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists move towards Afghanistan? Could this be used as another front of terrorism against India? In Kashmir specifically, do you see mounting of terrorism and challenges for India vis-a-vis Pakistan?
You see, the situation is entirely different now because these are not the Taliban of 1998 and 1999 when the Indian plane was hijacked and it was landed in Kandahar and Taliban were cooperating with the hijackers. Now I think that the India is also in contact with the Taliban leadership. They are busy in back-channel diplomacy since last few years. According to my information, recently some Indians met Taliban leadership not only in Doha, but they also met in Moscow, they met in Tehran, they also met in different capitals. So I think that Taliban are in touch with the Indians and they want legitimacy. This is in my personal knowledge. One of the Taliban leader who was present in Doha a few days back, he told us privately a few days back when I wrote a column in Washington Post about the backdoor channel diplomacy and contacts between Indian government and Afghan Taliban. So he told me that you missed one point. I said what? He said that Ashraf Ghani contacted Indian government and sent protests that why you have engaged Afghan Taliban. So I think that Afghan Taliban will try their level best to make a balance between their relations, Pakistan and India, and they will not. They will try their level best not to annoy India, not to annoy Pakistan. And that's why I said earlier that it's a big challenge for them because there are some elements in Afghanistan who are very friendly with Afghan Taliban, who I think are allies of Afghan Taliban, and those people are a threat to the security of Pakistan, to the security of India, to the security of Uzbekistan, China, Russia, and America. So Afghan Taliban have to address these concerns.
All right, we've completed our time. Mariam, in just about 15 seconds, how does this affect the image of Muslims across the world? Could this lead to more harassment, the return of Taliban and forceful takeover of power by the Taliban in Afghanistan?
If the Taliban act in a heinous manner and continue to spread horror, then it would be a shameful aspect for the Muslim community. However, if they uphold what they say and they act in accordance with all international humanitarian laws and work closely with the international community, but more so treat their own people with the respect that they deserve, then maybe they can have a respectable place amongst others. However, that is a question we have to wait to see, and monitoring the situation as closely as we can.
Okay, we've completed our time. Mariam Vardak, Mr. Ram Kishan, Ferishte Abbasi, and Mr. Hamid Mir, thank you very much for joining us on Global Eye to talk about the situation in Afghanistan and all those messages that came from the Taliban. Goodbye.